after a 6-year battle to keep his records shielded from the same scrutiny that every president has faced since the 1970s, House Democrats have voted to publicly release former President Donald Trump's tax returns. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee cast their votes along party lines last night following a 4-hour closed-door hearing on the matter. Although the full documents are not expected to be released for several days, the committee is already out with a 39-page summary of its findings. And here are some of the key takeaways. In 4 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump reported a negative income to the IRS. His income was in the green in 2018 after his first full year as president, and again in 2019 before falling back into the red in 2020. In 3 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump paid $750 or less in federal income taxes. That includes 2020, where he paid $0. The committee also raises questions about IRS scrutiny of a substantial number of declarations made on the former president's returns, despite claiming millions of dollars in deductions from charitable donations. The committee writes that the IRS made no efforts to verify the legitimacy of Trump's claims, quote, even when no supporting documents were provided. Those and other alleged failures by the IRS to scrutinize Trump's returns are outlined in another new report from the committee. Their lawmakers write that the IRS only conducted an audit of Trump's tax returns once, despite it being mandatory every year for sitting presidents. Only after the committee launched its investigation into Trump's returns did the IRS take any steps to look further into the filings. In an internal memo, the agency claimed it did not have enough resources to examine all the potential issues in Trump's returns. Joining us now, one of the Democrats who voted last night to release Donald Trump's tax returns, Congressman Don Beyer of Virginia. Congressman, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. Have you had a chance to look at the full spate of Donald Trump's tax returns?
Yes, I spent a couple of hours on Monday in the Capitol, or actually in Rayburn, just going through them page by page by page. Your summary was excellent. As a long-term business person, I was just amazed that you could report $100 million in income and have a tax under $1,000.
And so, yeah, that's one of many wonderful nuggets that have come out of this. But my question to you is, when you look at the full tax returns, what interested you the most, and was there any sources of income that seemed inappropriate in any way?
Well, the first thing is, as you know, this was all about checking the audit procedure. So the notion that they didn't audit, they audited 1 of 6 returns, and that only when the day they received Chairman Richie Neal's letter. That was very upsetting. They put 1 IRS agent on this. So very dramatically understaffed. No way they could actually go through it carefully. And what jumped out at me is almost $300 million worth of unsubstantiated deductions. That's how you get to paying no taxes, when you can say, you know, I gave $71 million here and $27 million there, but there was no documentation that supported any of it.
And what about the fact that he wasn't audited during his presidency? Does that indicate any wrongdoing?
Well, not necessarily on his part. You know, it'll be interesting. We'll figure out what's in the tax returns. The wrongdoing was the fact that the rule was very clear that every president's returns are subject to a mandatory audit. In fact, every president, going all the way back to Richard Nixon, has voluntarily released his returns. Trump promised to do that and never came through.
Congressman, you indicated that you spent Monday, I think you said Monday, going over the tax returns. Must have taken you a couple of hours to go over these tax returns. And I don't want to get you in trouble with Richie Neal, your chairman. But when you were going through these tax returns, can you give us a conservative estimate of the number of times you were looking at the tax returns that you said, wow?
Well, at least the 6 times I said wow, or when you saw the summaries of the different returns, the summaries of the page one, how much was coming in and how much was going out. But let me emphasize, the whole idea led by Chairman Neal was to check the audit procedures, which are obviously broken and failure. But with the broken audit procedure, you're not going to be able to go deeper and find out, why does somebody with $100 million worth of revenue pay less than $1,000 in taxes?
Congressman, you just mentioned a minute ago that you didn't necessarily blame Trump, that there wasn't the requisite audit, the customary audit every year as president. But it does raise questions about the IRS and the Department of Treasury. What sort of scrutiny should be applied to them right now? Should Congress be looking into further oversight as to how they handle this matter and presidential tax returns going forward?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that happened yesterday was Chairman Neal introduced legislation which seemed to have support from the Republicans to make this mandatory audit in the law with lots of oversight. One of the things that we have to do, too, is recognize for the last 10 years, our Republican colleagues have starved the IRS and continue to shrink the budget. It's a lot smaller than it was 10 years ago, but for the addition we made this past summer.
Congressman Beyer, go ahead.
No, it's just you can't do it if you don't have the resources, and we're trying to overcome that.
Okay, so I'm curious now that these are going to be released. We already have the summary, and you've got the full tax returns. It's clear Donald Trump lied about being audited. And it's clear there's some really interesting ways that he did his taxes to avoid having to pay taxes. But why does this matter at this point?
Well, I think the fundamental idea for us is that no one should be above the law, and especially a president of the United States. Some of our Republican colleagues are worried about the weaponization of the IRS, but we're never after private citizens. This is, for 4 years, the most important person on the planet. And it's really important that we know that he's telling the truth in his tax returns and that the audit serves the function that it was intended to do.
Member of the House Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Don Beyer, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.